My name is Dennis Porter. I am the CEO and co-founder of Satoshi Action Fund, which is a nonprofit organization that is very focused on educating lawmakers and regulators and the general public on the benefits of Bitcoin and digital assets. I travel the country, I travel the world, trying to help lawmakers understand the value of the technology and also to craft model legislation to help them pass it into law and help advocates also to engage their lawmakers as well. We were fortunate to be the first organization in history to help pass a strategic Bitcoin reserve bill into law in the state of New Hampshire. We did it twice, and we also passed it into law in Arizona as well, which essentially enables the treasurer there to be able to buy Bitcoin, a first of its kind piece of legislation. Our work has also helped result in over 20 million Americans having their access to digital assets like Bitcoin protected, and we've also crafted a dozen-plus academic papers, 6 of which have been peer-reviewed to help back up some of the claims that I'm going to be making here in this presentation today. I'm here to talk to you about a crisis of curtailment. All over the world, we're seeing rampant amounts of energy being wasted, and there is a clear solution for this problem. Every type of energy asset in the world has a downside, whether it's nuclear with radiation, whether it's coal and gas with their emissions, whether it's hydro with seasonality and the potential for droughts. But this also includes renewable energy, something that is very important here in the country of Chile. Renewable energy deals with a huge problem called curtailment. What is curtailment, though? It's very, very simple. If there is energy that could be sold because a wind farm or a solar farm is capturing potential energy from the sun being bright or the wind being strong, and they're unable to find a buyer, they're unable to get that energy to market, they have to shut down or what is called curtail in the industry their energy production, which is just pure energy waste. Every megawatt of solar, every megawatt of wind that is not sold, that is curtailed, is wasted energy. And there's a few reasons why this takes place. One of the biggest ones is a lack of energy infrastructure. Chile, of course, is a very long country. It's as long as my home country in the United States is wide, over 2,600 miles, 4,200 kilometers. And in order to get renewable energy from the north, let's say from the Atacama Desert or the areas of Antofagasta, you have to transmit that power very, very long distances over what are called high voltage transmission lines. These transmission lines are very expensive, very difficult to build, very time consuming to build. And as we've entered the clean energy transition, as we've been trying to move towards a more clean energy future, we've all kind of collectively realized that building these transmission lines was much more difficult than when we originally thought possible. And if you don't have those transmission lines in place, you're generating the power, but you don't have a way to get it to market. That's one major primary way where we see a lot of wasted energy from wind and solar. Another, of course, is this chart behind me, is a time problem. All of the solar energy in this country, and in every country, comes online at the same time and goes offline at the same time. When the sun comes up, we have solar generation potential. When the sun goes down, there is no more solar generation potential. And it's all happening exactly at the exact same time. There's no other generation asset like that. Well, this is a problem, because if you have a huge spike in demand across a grid, across an energy sector, and there's not enough demand when you have all this new supply, you're going to run into a problem of not being able to sell that power. So we have the problem of delivery potential and the problem of too much generation at the same time, which may mean that there's not enough demand, you've got too much supply, or there's so much extra generation that's taking place that you also run into the previous problem of just not being able to get it transmitted across the lines. This problem is getting worse. all over the world. Like, how big is this problem, right? That's the question. Sure, okay, there's some curtailment, and I agree, a little bit of curtailment, not a problem. But curtailment is exploding all across the country, here in Chile and all across the United States. And as a quick primer on why this is bad for you, for me, for the grid, and for the generators, is because when they can't sell the power, they have to come up with unique policy solutions, like power purchase payments, capacity markets, to help support green energy, which I'm favorable towards. But as we see more and more curtailment, we're going to have to see more and more programs developed to subsidize renewable energy. But the ultimate cost of those subsidies is borne on the ratepayer. It's borne on us. And occasionally, if there's an extreme amount of curtailment, you'll actually see some of these renewable energy generators going bankrupt or unable to be able to expand, which is also problematic for the clean energy future. This chart behind me, just to put it in context for how bad it is in my home country, and then of course we'll outline how bad it is here in Chile, is a chart from CAISO, California's ISO. It's the statewide grid. It's one of the biggest grids in the world, and they map how much wind and solar curtailment they have taking place every single month. This chart, I started tracking it in 2022, and as you can see, it's continued to explode. 2023, 2024, 2025, we're seeing curtailment grow and grow and grow. This chart, if it continues on the same path that you see right now, as it has from when I started monitoring it in 2022, the state of California alone will waste more green energy than the bottom 36 nations use combined. It is an incredible amount of power. We're not talking small amounts of power here. We're talking nation-level amounts of power, 36 nations, and that's just in California alone. Here's a recent chart also for the curtailment problem that's taking place here in Chile. As you can see, from 2016 to 2023, we've seen a general increase in the amount of curtailment. I wouldn't say that it was raising a lot of alarm bells, although concerning, a problem. We should try to solve this problem. But from 2023 to 2024, we saw an absolute explosion in the amount of wasted energy that is taking place here in Chile from wind and solar. A near 121% increase, 6 terawatt hours of energy being wasted every single year. And it really comes down to these problems of just not being able to get the energy to market because we don't have the infrastructure in place, and also because a lot of this solar energy is coming online at the same time. So how do we solve this problem? You know, of course, many people have suggested batteries. I love batteries. Batteries are a great solution. People have suggested we need to build more infrastructure, more high voltage transmission lines. Totally agree. We need more of that as well. We also need new policy. We're crafting new policy here as we speak. We're crafting new policy in the United States all the time, trying to figure out how do we solve this problem. But when you're faced with very complex problems that are very expensive and very time-consuming to solve, it's critical that we explore every tool that is available to us in the toolbox. And a new tool in the toolbox that many energy professionals and many energy experts and grids across the world are exploring is Bitcoin mining. Now, you might be wondering, how the hell is Bitcoin mining going to help us solve this problem of curtailment? Doesn't Bitcoin mining use a lot of energy? Isn't it bad for the environment? I'm here to challenge the very underlying principle of the way that you view Bitcoin mining as a technology. To me, Bitcoin mining is one of the most powerful energy tools that exists in the world today. And there's a number of reasons why. In fact, there's 6 of them. Bitcoin mining is location agnostic, number 1. What does that mean? It means it can be placed pretty much anywhere. Unlike wind and solar are very geographically dependent. They need to go where the wind is strong. They need to go where the sun is bright. That for solar, that tends to be in the north here. That's very far away from where demand centers for power are at. Santiago is very far away from the north of Chile, where they need to build all the solar, or where there's a high opportunity to be able to build solar because it's actually the best place on planet Earth to build solar. So, but Bitcoin mining is not. Bitcoin mining is not location dependent. It can be built anywhere you want to build it. Doesn't matter. It's totally agnostic to where it wants to go. Number two, which is probably the most important feature, and I'll show a graph up here to try to demonstrate it here in just a moment, but it is by far the most important feature of Bitcoin mining, and it is that it is a flexible load. It has flexible uptimes. When you're talking about traditional data centers, Amazon, Google, you name it, they don't want to be doing this. They don't want to turn on and turn off. They want to be what's called 5 nines uptime. They want to be 99.999% up. Never go down. The reason is because Amazon, Google, all these different data centers, AI data centers even, they're providing a service to you. And when you go to use that service, you want it to work on demand. Well, Bitcoin is very different. Bitcoin miners are all doing the same thing at the same time collectively all over the world. They're all trying to process transactions and to secure the Bitcoin network. And it's very, very, very simple the way that occurs. And that is what enables a Bitcoin mine in one region to go down while Bitcoin miners in another region stay up. You could even have, theoretically, half of all the Bitcoin mining in the world go down, and Bitcoin would continue to still operate. Probably you could even shut even more of it down than that. So it's incredibly flexible in the way that it goes up and it goes down. One of the most flexible large loads, if not the most flexible large load on the planet. The third one, of course, that is really important for, especially for Chile, is that it can be air-cooled. You don't need water. And if you're in the north, where there's very limited resources, very limited amounts of water, that's going to be critical. And it's a big difference from a lot of the traditional data centers that we see out there. Number four is it's highly scalable. 1 megawatt, 5 megawatts, 100 megawatts, 1,000 megawatts. Whatever the size of the problem is for a renewable energy generator, you can perfectly scale the size of your Bitcoin mining data center to fit that problem and to fix that problem. Number five, it can be built on site. So you build a wind farm, you got extra land, you can co-locate directly on site. Of course, when I said you can build it anywhere, you can literally build it anywhere, but specifically, which is really important, you can build it on site with a wind or solar farm, which is really important. If you have the ability to build it on site, you can avoid having to pay transmission costs, further reducing and improving the economics of a Bitcoin mine. You can avoid placing strain on the grid. That's a common term we hear thrown around when we talk to lawmakers. Oh, Bitcoin mining, straining the grid. A lot of Bitcoin miners are moving behind the meter and staying off the grid and monetizing excess energy from wind and solar and from other energy generation assets. So that's a really key thing, really important factor of Bitcoin mining is that it can be built on-site, co-located right next to a wind or solar farm. And the last one here is that it does not require fiber. You don't need to have some super strong, super powerful internet connection in order to mine Bitcoin. It does not use a lot of data. You can use a Starlink. You can use a cell phone tower. Very, very important and very different, again, from traditional data centers, which require very, very strong fiber connections, internet connections, in order to be able to operate properly. So let's go back, though. Let's go back to the second one that I said was super important, and how Bitcoin mining is one of the most flexible loads on the planet. Keep in mind, Bitcoin mining can be on as little as 30% in an entire day and still be profitable based on current market numbers, based on the current rates that my team and others are seeing out there. It's a very, very, very short amount of time that it can be on and still be a totally profitable business. But we're not only talking about like 30% of the day in one block. Let's say you have a wind farm where you've got wind in the morning, you've got wind in the evening. You can have the Bitcoin mine as, sort of match up almost perfectly to the generation pattern. There is no large load in history that is a buyer and a consumer of power that can match the generation pattern. And if any energy experts are in the room, How many of you have actually heard of something that can perfectly match the generation pattern that just doesn't exist? There's no customer of power that way. Now, of course, batteries are able to match the generation pattern, but they're not a customer. They're someone that's trying to help you extend and the timeline of when you can sell power. So it's a huge benefit to be able to participate in and perfectly match the generation pattern, because ultimately, if you can combine variable generation, variable renewable generation, term we hear a lot, with variable load, or what some people call large flexible load, you can absolutely and completely and totally eliminate all curtailment. Now, I do believe, of course, that there are other great solutions out there, but there are very few that can absolutely eliminate curtailment almost entirely on their own with no other solutions necessary. All it takes is, I think, a little bit of policy work from lawmakers to understand the value of why it matters to allow for Bitcoin miners to go behind the grid, to allow for Bitcoin miners to have these types of PPA relationships with these renewable energy providers. Very important. But just as a real quick, it's not just me that's saying these things. I'm up here talking to you. I had the fortune of being able to be invited to speak. But we're getting also academics and energy experts all across the world that are backing up these claims that I am making here on stage to you right now. One in particular, we were able to co-author a paper with the former ERCOT CEO, New York ISO CEO. Those are two of the largest grids in the United States. And he co-authored the paper on my right, your left, to say that Bitcoin mining is an extremely powerful tool, not only for the renewable energy sector, but also for balancing the grid. Something, of course, if you're interested in learning more about, happy to talk after this. We also helped on an academic paper, which outlined how not only is Bitcoin mining good for helping to monetize excess generation from wind and solar, it's also good for the development of wind and solar. Because when you build energy generating assets, you have to have a buyer. Otherwise, you're never going to get funded. You're never going to get the financing you need to actually build your wind and solar project. And so if you want to build a wind farm, you have to sort of figure out who's that initial off-taker going to be. Well, now for the first time ever in history, no matter where you want to build your generation asset, there will always be someone there that wants to be the first buyer of resort. They also call it the buyer of last resort. Bitcoin miners are always in pursuit of affordable, cheap energy. And not only is wind and solar some of the cheapest energy on the planet, but curtailed, wasted energy that nobody is using is especially affordable. So we've got the top energy experts in the world. We also have peer-reviewed research backing up these claims. But additionally, the largest telecom company in Europe, T-Mobile, owned by Deutsche Telekom, is also mining Bitcoin off of solar energy. So we are seeing a huge move into this space. And it's something that I'm very excited about as someone who's been advocating for this technology for many years now, to see large players move into space, to see the research backing up these claims, but also to see some of the largest Bitcoin miners in the world actually start to acquire renewable energy assets themselves and begin to vertically integrate. The world is changing very rapidly all around us, everything from AI to Bitcoin mining. And I'm just proud to be able to be here to share the powerful stories and the powerful solutions that Bitcoin mining can provide to the energy system here in Chile and all across the world. I truly do believe that Bitcoin mining as a solution can permanently end this problem of curtailment here in Chile and all across the world. Thank you, everybody, for letting me come up here to talk, and I appreciate being able to be here in Chile and looking forward to chatting with you afterwards.